City Council work session for February 21st. I will note that everyone is present, all council members present, and staff. And we'll go through February 23rd for council meeting agenda on Thursday. We'll have a call to order, roll call, invocation by Reverend Donna Smith of the Graceful Passage for Vets. That's in the Warrior Healing Center. Pledge of Allegiance by the Youth Commission. They'll be here.
Sweet.
Nice. And then we go to item 1, Ms. Landry. And awards and presentations. Presentation to our past mayor, Frederick Mueller, as well as certificates of appreciation. Always good to recognize our employees, Parks and Recreation, and certificates of appreciation to the Buffalo Troopers Motorcycle Club in Sierra Vista and the Youth Commission members. And then we'll go to our city manager report. City manager?
Well, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. It should be a fairly normal report. There won't be a JPA meeting before that. At the last JPA meeting, we did accept the resignation of Michael Klein as director, and Ms. Tammy Jo Wilkins of Cochise County is now the interim director there. So some changes over at CCOM. The employee training and hiring are still going at pace, and there's going to be a graduation of the academy class coming up later this week as well. So that situation is on a positive note right now as well. And then I'll have probably some project updates for you at the regular meeting then as well.
Graduation class is going to be at Cochise College where?
That's my understanding.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Then we'll proceed to item number 2, with Mr. Rodriguez. And in our public hearing, we'll discuss item number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Then we'll have a call to the public. Well, let's go back to the public hearing. Staff report, Mr. McLaughlin. Item number 3.
The development code changes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of council, good afternoon. I'll try to be as succinct as possible as the amendments cover a lot of ground that took the Planning and Zoning Commission 2 work sessions to hammer out. The requested action on Thursday is to place the proposed amendments into the public record for a 30-day comment period. The amendment package essentially bundles together 4 sets of development code changes. Most code changes that we've proposed in the past are designed to streamline and clarify processes and procedures and permit requirements. There's one exception with this item where we're proposing to enact what we think are reasonable standards on unattended donation containers. That's not a term that we came up with. We borrowed it from other codes that we researched. While they haven't been a major issue in the grand scheme of things, we are recommending, we think it's prudent for the city to adopt basic standards on their use and placement, as well as basic responsibilities of the owner on their care and maintenance. So I'll take you through our summary in the memo in the order of the amendments as they appear in the code, starting with the article dealing with administration and enforcement, which includes some minor tweaks for the sake of clarity and consistency with current practice. Zoning compliance certificates and certificates of occupancy are often required by lenders, title companies, and state licensing agencies to verify that the use is authorized to occur on the property where it's being cited. Certificates of occupancy are issued upon passing final inspection for new construction or when there's a change of use within an existing building. Zoning compliance certificates, on the other hand, are issued on those properties with no record of prior site plan approval. So the C of O is vested under the code in effect at the time the construction was completed. And since we can't retroactively issue a certificate of occupancy, in those instances where we don't have one on file in our permanent records, albeit the building was built before codes were enacted or it was annexed without that file being conveyed to the city, or it otherwise can't be located, we have the ability to alternatively issue an occupancy permit. And this provides written certification that by the building official, that the building or unit is considered to be safe and suitable for the authorized use, which is usually an acceptable substitute to a certificate of occupancy. And so we're just cleaning up that article to be in alignment with current practice. The second article for proposed amendment concerns special regulations for particular uses. This is where we're proposing to establish permitting requirements for unattended donation containers, which are used for temporary storage of donated items and materials. It's important to note that the proposed regulations do not affect donation bins affiliated with a nonprofit on this property where they're located. Only those that are located off-site in a non-residential property, that is an accessory use, okay? Like what you see at the mall. So in terms of standards, the unattended donation container would need to be set on a paved surface, outside of required setbacks, landscape areas, and parking, be lighted or have a functioning video camera, a firmly closing and locking lid, and be clearly marked on the specific items acceptable for donation and the owner contact information. Where allowed, only one unattended donation container is permitted per lot or two within a shopping center or industrial park, provided they're not clustered together. Contents are required to be cleared at least once per week, and any items left on or around the container shall be removed within 24 hours upon discovery and notification. If damaged or vandalized, the container must be repaired or removed within 5 business days. Upon receiving 3 valid complaints or when determined to be a violation of this code, the city may take action to revoke permission and compel the removal of the container from the property when it's deemed to be a public nuisance, okay? So the third set of changes concerns the site plan review process, where we're more clearly delineating a 3-tier review process calibrated to be in proportion to the degree of impact on the community. The level 1 sub-threshold is for minor changes to a site that we could process with a simple building permit, a plot plan associated with building permit. And this would apply to building additions and accessory structures adding no more than 2,500 square feet to a site, not more than 1,000 square feet or 10% of the impervious surface area resulting from site improvements. And impervious surface area are materials that do not allow for the penetration of water into the soil, which can affect stormwater runoff, okay? The level 2 small-scale review process applies to principal buildings and expansions that conform to a previously approved site plan, and alterations to existing principal buildings or accessory structures that add more than 2,500 square feet, but less than 5,000 square feet to a site. The maximum amount of additional impervious surface area resulting from site improvements is capped at 5,000 square feet or 10%. And again, unless a previously approved drainage master plan accommodates the increase. This level of review requires a scale drawing and the same information currently required for administrative site plan submittals. Level 3 applications are required for projects that don't meet the levels 1 or 2 thresholds. And the current process we follow for site plan approvals, which are acted upon by the Development Review Committee, would be followed. Again, we think having this charted out in code will make things more clear for prospective applicants. And then the final article deals with district regulations. We're proposing amendments to how lot coverage is measured and reductions to residential setback requirements. With respect to setbacks, the rear yard setback requirement on single-family lots varies from 20 to 30 feet, depending on zoning district. The Planning and Zoning Commission suggested establishing a uniform required rear yard of 20 feet across all single-family zoning districts to provide more flexibility within the building envelope for home placement and accommodate building additions. Moreover, the commission supports reductions to required side yards in single-family zones to provide more flexibility in home design, particularly for wider homes with 3-car garages, which is a growing trend. The city's largest home builders support this change, and it's also recommended in the Housing Supply Study Committee formed by the Arizona state legislature to remove regulatory barriers to increasing housing supply in the state. We are seeing single-family homes gravitate towards multifamily residential districts for the smaller setbacks. In fact, 44% of the land that's been developed under multifamily zoning is occupied by single-family homes, which is a statistic that I didn't appreciate until we did the research. This proposed action would reduce the required interior side yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet, and the SFR 12 and SFR 18 zoning districts from 10 feet to 7 feet, and the SFR 10 zoning district, and from 7 feet to 5 feet, and the SFR 8 zoning district. On multifamily properties, staff is proposing to reduce building setbacks in the urban infill incentive overlay district on the west end, where we're trying to promote compact redevelopment with an urban context. The minimum front yard setback would go from 40 feet down to 20 feet, the minimum side yard setback from 20 feet down to 10 feet, and the minimum rear yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet. With respect to accessory structures, currently there's no required setback for accessory structures on lots that are contiguous with an alley. We're recommending that this allowance be extended to include lots that are abut a dedicated drainageway, which serves the same buffering effect as an alley. And then the last proposal is to replace yard coverage with overall lot coverage standards scaled to the minimum lot sizes, which is industry standard. In single-family zoning districts, the proposed lot coverage percentages range from 30% on 36,000 square foot lots to 60% on 6,000 square foot lots. On lots zoned for multifamily and manufactured homes, the proposed lot coverage percentage is 80%. These ratios are in line with the requirements adopted by communities that we researched throughout the state. We also ground truth this proposal using local GIS parcel mapping data to determine the average lot coverage of principal buildings across city zoning districts and applied a factor of 2 to create the upper limit. These amendments will provide additional latitude for the placement of structures and make the lot coverage area easier to calculate and enforce. So as I mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission held 2 work sessions and a public hearing on December 13th, and they voted unanimously 4-0 to recommend approval of these amendments to the City Council. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Council, any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for all that, Matt, and thanks for all the P and Z taking all this under their belt too. It's a lot of reading this weekend on that computer. I was helping me fall asleep a little. Unattended donation containers.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna have anybody grandfathered, right?
Those still be subject to the standards adopted by the code, but they will not require a permit according to our city attorney. And the most problematic donation container, their lease is up next Tuesday, the one off the Mercado Loop. Yeah.
All I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
eyesore,
so,
I mean the mall.
But there are others on that same mall property that haven't presented problems like that one. But again, this is intended to mitigate problems down the road.
Okay. That was all I gotta ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of information, so thanks so much for giving that summary and for all the work that went into that. And I definitely feel it's important to have clarification and it's nice to be able to go through things and clarify, and having the unattended donation containers and broken down like that. I think it's great to prevent things from getting worse than. Anyway, thank you for your work on that.
Yes, sir.
I do think it's necessary to do this. Unfortunately, it's necessary to do this, and it's not the donation people's fault. They provide a good service, they have a good heart to do these things. It's unfortunately it's the public people that want to dump out there and think it's okay to dump couches and chairs, and when they clearly not where that's supposed to go, dirty mattresses and all that stuff. So unfortunately, this has to be passed in order to maybe mitigate that. It's no fault of the person that sets up this box, and I don't think they should be. If I was in charge of the box, I wouldn't want to come out and pick up couches and chairs that people leave and they know they shouldn't leave them there. But there's no other. I don't know what other way we could do that than
Camera.
I mean, I don't know how far cameras would go. Who would? how would we, you know, how would we prosecute that? You know, that gets more into it than we're putting our police officers and give them something else to do. And hey, who dumps this couch? But it's obviously necessary, unfortunately. But like you said, the lease is up, so whether they renew or not, that'll definitely be some changes there. And hopefully, it won't be worst case scenario. What I'm thinking is people are still going to dump it there anyway because they've always dumped it there. So then we might have to come up with another plan as how are we going to abate that area. That's it.
Any more discussion? All right. Thank you, Mr. We go to item number 2, no, item number 4. Excuse me. Item number 4, staff report, Chief Thrasher.
Mayor, members of council, the resolution before you is to approve the donation of 4 surplus dispatch consoles to our sister city, Cananea, Sonora, Mexico. Currently, we're in possession of 4 dispatch consoles from our previous dispatch area in the police department. The area has been vacant since 2018, since moving over to CCOM. These are fully functional dispatch consoles that change elevation for standing, sitting, and cable placement. We have, this procurement has tried to surplus these items through auction and had no bidders. So we started looking for those that would want these, and our sister city, city manager has said they would like to accept these 4 dispatch consoles for the use in their public safety operations. The value of the 4 consoles is approximately $2,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
Is City of Cananea going to move these, or,
Yes,
okay, so there will be no expense to the city?
That's correct.
Other than the donation?
that's correct.
It goes to a good cause. Thank you, Chief.
Good job, Chief. It's going to a great cause down in Cananea, one of our sister cities. Talked with city manager this morning, and they are just ecstatic receiving these consoles, and looking forward to going down there. Hopefully, to see them and also visit the city. Heard that we get some good reception when we go down there.
Yes, you will.
All right, any other discussions? Yes,
I
sir.
just want to point out, the last time we did this, we donated anything. Our sister city was it a fire truck? The last time we donated anything to them?
Not
Yes.
to
Cananea.
Cananea?
Yeah, we've donated an old ladder truck,
Ladder
Mr.
truck,
Rodriguez, to Cananea, as well as ambulances in the past. Very well received. I think
Right.
they're still using the equipment, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, Chief. So,
I'm glad it's you know, like I said, it's been a while since I've heard of anything being donated to our sister city, which is good. We don't have a lot of things, unfortunately, we can surplus. It seems like just good timing, so I appreciate everybody that went to the process of getting this done.
you know, another point I want to make to Mayor McCaw and
Sure.
Councilman Rodriguez is Cananea, I mean, it's a great relationship. You know, obviously, we see many people come up from Cananea to shop and entertain themselves here. So, of course, we get the benefit of sales tax revenue as a result of them being here. And what we're returning back in equipment, I'm not even sure it comes close to what they contribute to our local economy. Yet the appreciation for what we do is always tremendous, and they put it to good use.
I have one question for Chief. Will there be any training rendered to the recipients?
They will be showed how to, when they come up, and they'll show them how to operate the system, but they'll have to dismantle it and then reassemble it when they get down there. We want to leave it as is so that they can mark the right panels so that they get put back the way it should be.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. We go to item number 5. Back to Chief Thrasher. Staff report.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The resolution before you is an authorization to accept Arizona Department of Homeland Security grant reallocation funding of Operation Stone Garden grant funds. Throughout the years, some of these funds are not expended by other agencies, and they go back to the Department of Homeland Security for reallocation to agencies that can use them. These funds will be used to continue our support of Operation Stone Garden and the Border Patrol, as well as the Sheriff's Department with Operation Safe Streets. So the amount of this reallocation is $46,069.05. It'll be used for overtime and employee-related expenses as well as for mileage. Again, this supports both Operation Stone Garden and Operation Safe Streets. And there is no match required, and this covers everything from overtime, full employee-related expenses, including PSPRS, and workers' comp insurance and Social Security, and the mileage expenses. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, staff? Council? No questions. Thank you, sir. Moving on to number 5, staff report, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The item before you today is regarding the proposed city code amendments related to chapters 94 and 90. The proposed amendment to chapter 90 is an edit to the language regarding the sanctioning of public events. Chapter 94's recommendations add definitions for athletic fields and courts, distinguish the different types of parks located throughout our community, and addresses electrical bicycle usage in our city's multi-use paths and park trail systems. The mayor and council were presented this item by staff during the January 12th council meeting as a public hearing item. It was then approved to be published to the public for their feedback for a period of 30 days. Public comments were received from Friday, January 13th through Wednesday, February 15th. All the comments received were collected by the city clerk's office and are included in your packet for your review. They're also available for public review as a part of your February 23rd meeting agenda. We received no comments or recommendations to any of the amendments, with the exception of Chapter 94's proposed amendments regarding electrical bicycles. Several articles of feedback were collected regarding that topic, and the recommendations varied from doing absolutely nothing to enforcing a speed limit, allowing all classes of e-bikes on trails, and then also restricting Class 3 e-bicycles. Currently, the Arizona Revised Statutes 28-219 does not allow for Class 3 e-bikes to be operated on a bicycle or multi-use path unless it is within or adjacent to a highway or roadway. This law is written currently restricts Class 3 e-bikes from operating on the multi-use path located on Avenida Cochise between Oakbond Drive and Coronado Drive, Garden Canyon Linear Park Trail, and the path between Cochise College and Buena High School. The law does not permit does permit local governments the option to allow all classes of electrical bicycles access to all trails. In order to legally permit all classes of e-bikes to utilize all paths and trails within city limits, staff recommends adding language to Chapter 94.04 to the city code that will allow all classes of electrical bicycles to utilize all paths and trails if that is the desire of the mayor and council. That concludes the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Council? Yes, ma'am.
During the public comment period, when we got a lot of comment back from the public, and I thought that was great that so many people wanted to share their thoughts and about that. So it was great going through that to see what the public feels. And I think it also shows the importance of having that public feedback as well. And I feel like the end result is good, I think. So thanks to everybody who shared their comments.
Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
When this was originally proposed way back in January, before the input period was permitted, I read through all of these comments very, very carefully. And I spoke initially at that meeting that regardless of the type of e-bike that's ridden, I think that we cannot discriminate against people that have Class 3 e-bikes. Many are senior citizens. They're not able to exercise like some of us still can, and I felt it was very discriminatory. And according to the state statute, we can, as a city, permit all classes of e-bikes on our multi-use paths. So, that was my stance then, and it is now. So,
It's the recommendation from staff now?
Yes. It's the recommendation from staff now. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
No, I agree with the new recommendation. I think that's the right way to go, based off the feedback and what we're allowed to do within the law. Thank you.
And again, I compliment the citizens of Sierra Vista with all the comments, just like But the city manager said this one thing produced a whole slew of comments, and so we appreciate the citizens providing your comments to this one issue, and we would like to see more of that as we go forth. So that's it for item number 6. We'll do a call to the public and comments and requests from each council member. And now we'll go to, yes, item number B, presentation by Tim Kirk, Kathy Goodman from the Warrior Healing Center. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. How does this work? Is this on? Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
And there's a button there too, you can raise that. It's to the whole
to the side?
podium.
Off the side? Oh, really? Look out.
Us tall people gotta stick together, I get it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had no idea city council meetings were so exciting.
We try.
This is great.
We had a theft today.
Is this also like, this is not?
I think it's on one mic.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kathy, this is Tim, and we want to thank you for letting us come in and tell you a little bit about the Warrior Healing Center. Are you controlling the slides?
No.
We have the-
Yes, sir.
All right. You guys able to see this?
Yes.
All right.
So we have been working for a few years now to find the answer to veteran suicide. Go to the next, thank you. And it really isn't that complicated what we found. It is all about community and it's all about giving hope. Go ahead to the next slide. Many of the slides that we're going to show you here are free. You've got them printed, I hope. You can take them home and read a lot of this. I don't want to bore you with a lot. We're on a tight time crunch here. But this tells you a little bit about who's behind the center. And the next slide. This is our board of directors who is fighting the good fight on a daily basis with us. Their bios are up on our website if you're interested. Basically, this community, your hometown, has been doing something that's done nowhere else in the country for almost 5 years now. We are 100% volunteer. We have made the Warrior Healing Center basically out of nothing but blood, sweat, tears, and some donations, which have come in very handy. And we are devoted to helping veterans and solving the veteran suicide problem. Next slide. Research and experience show us that the veteran suicide problem is not a mental health problem. The reason the problem is so out of control is because nobody is treating it the way that it needs to be treated. Veterans are not committing suicide because they've lost touch with reality or succumb to irrational thinking. On the contrary, suicide is often a very rational, final act of control that has its own logic. But the VA sees veteran suicide and PTSD primarily as mental health problems, and that directs their course of treatment, which is often heavy medication and therapy. But we work with veterans on a daily basis and listen to them, and we know that this is wrong, very wrong. Because we have been there personally, and because we listen to veterans, we understand that the veteran suicide problem is a product of psychological or emotional disruption. For a veteran, crisis can be very individualized. It's caused by social integrators, the things that cause stress in our lives, having a breakup, losing your house, losing your job. And every one of those things is going to be treated or individualized by the veteran differently. So what tips one veteran over the edge is very different from what might break another. And the right approach to fixing this is community crisis intervention that generates hope. The truth is that the problem is much worse than the marketing would lead you to believe. The marketing is bad enough. That 22 a day number is hugely underreported.
Right.
The VA counts veteran suicides for those that have notes left. So they are missing drug overdoses, alcohol overdoses, single vehicular accidents, and what's our favorite, Tim?
Death by misadventure.
Because veterans are very vulnerable to falls from significant heights, right? The marketing is bad, but the truth is that the VA's reporting is not only misleading, it's also reckless. They've just released their 2022 annual report on veteran suicide, and in it, they celebrate a small decrease in the number of veteran suicides in the year 2020 from the prior 3 years. But that report really covers veteran suicides from 2001 to 2020. And the truth is that the numbers counted by the VA are higher in the year 2020 than they are in the year 2001. And in that time period, the veteran population has actually shrunk by 24.6%. So really, they should be looking at it as ratios, the rate of veteran suicide. Right. And in 2001, the rate of veteran suicide was 23 per 100,000 veterans. In 2020, that jumped to 31 per 100,000 veterans. If you look at the age group of 18 to 34, the suicide rate has increased to 46 per 100,000 veterans. Do you have any idea what it is here in Cochise County? 55 per 100,000 veterans. That's worse than the national average by a lot. Looking at the VA numbers, the truth is America has suffered over 6,000 veteran suicides every year for 20 straight years, which is more than 120,000 deaths by their own hand, which is more than the service members lost in battle in Vietnam, Korea, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan, all combined. In Cochise County, we do not even have a county coroner. We use the Pima County Office of the Medical Examiner. Thanks to the efforts of the Warrior Healing Center, this past December, Pima County has started tracking veteran causes of death separate from the rest of society, which has been very helpful. And you can see on this slide some of the other statistics that we've got. Per capita, Sierra Vista is the #1 city in Arizona for veteran population, but did you know that we're #3 in the country? We should be breaking the mold and setting the example. Sierra Vista has the potential to be the most veteran-friendly town in the country, and we should be pursuing that. If we are a good place for veterans to land, veterans have a lot of benefits. So that means financially, this is a no-brainer. We will have more education, more small businesses, better housing, better medical care options, better shopping, stronger churches, and probably less crime. Veterans have the benefits that they've earned. A lot of them have not been connected to those benefits, though, but that's one of the things that Warrior Healing Center helps with as well. But please take note of this statistic here that more than 25% of our population here in Sierra Vista is veteran. So we really should be focusing on veteran issues and veteran opportunities. We should also be encouraging veterans to set the example that they learned when they served in the military. They have to meet high standards, and that is a good lesson for them to teach all of us and to hold us accountable to. All of this begins with taking care of veterans in crisis and helping them transform their lives into veterans of stability. That begins with PFA. Tim, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And I know what you're thinking. Suicide's not a mental health problem. What, are you crazy? Well, no. This is the product of many years of research. And the problem has a lot more to do with people who have a firm grasp on reality, but who have these strange, funny things we don't like to talk about called emotions. And these emotional people are sometimes damaged or traumatized by their experiences. Maybe not 20 years ago in the military, but maybe just now. You know the standard country music song. My wife left me, my dog died, I lost my house, I lost my job. All those things happen at once, or some combination of those, create psychological trauma, create emotional effects. There's a fine line between mental illness and psychological distress. But mental illness is what happens when the person loses track of reality, when they need medication or therapy in order to deal with reality. But psychological effects are when they lose the ability to cope with problems, when they can't see the horizon. They have no reason to hope for tomorrow. And that's why they need psychological first aid. We treat these problems the same way we treat physical health problems. So the first step is first aid. Just like a first aid kit at a school, we would treat them with psychological first aid. Veteran crises do not happen during business hours, but the VA closes at 5 o'clock on Friday. And guess when the veteran experiences the crisis? After Friday, 5 o'clock, when they've been drinking and are 6 or 7 beers or shots back, that's when the crisis happens. So we have to have availability of crisis intervention resources at night, on the weekends, and that is what Warrior Healing Center is all about. We've worked with Johns Hopkins University to model veteran crises resolution after the lessons they learned from studying natural disaster crisis response. What they found 30 years ago, they started sending psychiatrists and psychologists into areas where they had earthquakes or tornadoes or hurricanes to try to help the victims of those natural disasters. And what they found after 10 years of research is that's the exact wrong thing, and it was actually doing more harm than good, because the people who had been victims of those crises didn't need long-term mental health care. They needed crisis intervention, psychological first aid. They had issues today. They didn't need to hear about how they'd have, support 6 months down the road. They needed living quarters now. They needed money now. They needed insurance now. If they had lost a loved one, they had issues with getting insurance taken care of now. And so Johns Hopkins developed this psychological first aid concept in order to respond to that. And we worked with them to tweak it to what veterans experience. We have to ask, what if? What if it is possible to save $396,000 by spending $200? You'll find out more about those figures in a moment. This is what the VA does wrong. They are not capable of supporting veterans in crisis appropriately. A veteran in crisis who calls the VA, they're told, great, we can get you in for a mental health appointment with a therapist in 3 months. Well, by then, the crisis has long metastasized into suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations, and maybe even suicidal attempts. The problem is, too, veterans don't ask for help. That was trained out of us in the military, right? Hack it or pack it. At this point, we need a team of folks who get it, because there is often shame, guilt, and pride involved in the crisis that prevents veterans from building immediate trust with care providers. Well, Warrior Healing Center has this licked. We have volunteers who can build that trust, who are combat veterans and family members, to put together a plan of action. Sierra Vista Police Department and Cochise County Sheriff's Office have both reached out to Warrior Healing Center on multiple occasions to assist when a stressed veteran runs into the law, but they really just need assistance with resources, avoiding an escalation with law enforcement. And that ultimately is what psychological first aid is about in a nutshell. Kathy?
For 3 years, Cochise County averaged 12.3 suicides a year. Last year, Warrior Healing Center was granted $100,000 by the state in funding to apply to the veteran suicide prevention. We worked with local organizations. We set up a monthly meeting so that we could include DAV and the VFW and the American Legions that are local, and some of the other leading organizations. Velo Vets was there as well. And the idea being that we would work together to figure out where can that money do the most impact. We wanted to make sure we were spending state funds on direct veteran support before spending the hard-earned dollars locally. You can see that in 2022, the number of veteran suicides dropped in Cochise County by 27%. None of those vets were working with the Warrior Healing Center.
So we wanted to provide some figures on the cost of veteran suicide, because suicide is remarkably expensive. We went to the CDC, and we won't do the math for you here, but it's there on your slide. what it comes out to is, on average, each suicide attempt, not even necessarily successful suicide, but each suicide attempt costs on average $396,669, and that's in 2019 dollars, which means from 2019 through 2021, Cochise County suffered an estimated cost for veteran suicide of about $4.8 million per year, just in successful suicides, not counting suicide attempts.
Warrior Healing Center is making a strong impact in this community. These next few slides speak for themselves with a lot of information. But please take note of the variety of services that we're providing to this community. You'll see on this slide, we even are working with local veteran-owned businesses to try and provide networking opportunity for them that wasn't here before Warrior Healing Center. This next slide is the one that we really want to call your attention to. The VA rates veterans based on their injuries and symptoms, which translates into benefits and compensation and pension. Many veterans struggle with seeking these benefits, and most of those who do find the process incredibly arduous and painful. We've done a lot of work in the past couple of years. We've worked with a local family veteran-owned business up in Surprise that has really kind of cracked the code on this. And they're able to help veterans through this process and have a high success rate of getting them upgraded. And getting them upgraded, those disability ratings, means that they get benefits like education, healthcare, dentist, and cash. This slide shows the results of the work that Warrior Healing Center has done just in 2022 with that organization, helping 113 veterans in Cochise County get their rating upgraded, 62 of them to 100%. We're constantly assisting more through this process. Last year, this work generated an additional $1.6 million tax-free into this community as back pay. And that's an extra $6 million every year coming in to those 113 veteran families. The next couple of slides you guys can look at on your own to get comfortable with the numbers that we're seeing, but this shows what we're looking at Warrior Healing Center. These are first-time veteran visits to the center. So these are a little bit underrepresented of our whole population because we get a lot of repeats as well. The most important thing to note is that we are tracking these numbers, and they're going to start to reveal trends and challenges that need to be met, how stressed our veteran population is, and what their needs are. I'm going to guess that you haven't seen any reports like this from other organizations locally, but we are working with local veteran service organizations within the county so that we can compile all of this and be effective and efficient so that we can share information. We've got a database that is available for them to see so that we can work together to help identify who these veterans at risk are and make sure that they're taken care of. We're working hard to change the status quo. As you're paying for your taxes this year, please keep in mind that Warrior Healing Center is now a qualified charitable organization in Arizona, meaning that a donation to WHC can be a tax refund from the state. This is important to us as we're trying to find ways to operate on low money right now. We rely on grants and private donations and our fundraising campaign, which is 22 to End 22. Our goal is to be community owned and supported. What we need from you, we need Sierra Vista and Cochise County to be proud of what we have and to participate in what we do. We are fighting for veterans, and I don't say that lightly. We literally are pissing people off at the state level. In Maricopa County, there are bureaucrats that are not happy with the work that we're doing because we're shining a light on things that they don't necessarily want the light shown on. So what we really need is awareness. We need people to understand the fight that we're fighting and to be proud of it and supportive.
So here are the takeaways that we hope that you'll take with you. I'm not going to read it to you, but in essence, we really hope that you'll do as Kathy said and help us make the problems aware, make the public aware of the problems, the statistics we talked about. Namely, that suicide is not a mental health problem, and the VA has failed in 20 years of effort to make a dent in the veteran suicide issue because they don't understand this. And we need someone who does understand this to make a difference in our community. And two, Warrior Healing Center uses an innovative method developed by listening to our veterans in the community and experts in the field at Johns Hopkins. This is attacking the problem as a matter of psychology and emotions, a subtle but vital difference. 3, because veteran suicide is expensive. Much of it is preventable. And when we use a model like the psychological first aid station at Warrior Healing Center, veterans do use it, and it makes a difference. Added to that, it gives Warrior Healing Center the opportunity to assist veterans as they build better lives through the benefits they've earned. And that helps our local economy and community in many ways. Pause now for your questions, sir.
First, thank you for the extensive brief. Yes, your $100,000 that you received from the state this year, I think it was 2022, is that do you have to apply every year for that $100,000?
Sir, that $100,000 was a budget item in the state of Arizona for veteran suicide prevention. And in the next budget, there is currently $0 in the state of Arizona marked for veteran suicide prevention in the state of Arizona. We applied with the Arizona Department of Veteran Services for their large grant for 2023,
Yes, sir.
and were rejected for that grant. So we have 0 state support for 2023.
Do you have a designated grant writer?
You're looking at them, sir.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How many organizations are within the Warrior Healing Center itself?
Head fake. Sir, we're hovering right around 50. It's both organizations and dedicated programs. Some organizations are actually housed there. Others use the facility, and it comes to around 50.
So it's one-stop shopping.
Yes, sir, that's the idea. Is
Right.
a great one place for veteran families to go whenever they need any kind of assistance.
Yes, sir.
Just an example, so if somebody's homeless here in Sierra Vista, we can direct them to the Warrior Healing Center. If they're having issues middle of the night, middle of the day, having some thoughts, or just need some help, obviously they have somewhere they can go to, and you guys will provide just to get them back on their feet type stuff, and then long-term solutions. Yes, that's or other organizations are under your umbrella, correct?
That's correct, sir. What we do is we maintain relationships with the community. We don't provide all the solutions. We maintain relationships with the people who do. So we're able to provide certain short-term solutions, such as short-term housing or short-term financing for little, small problems.
Right.
But then we've got the Rolodex with all the experts in the community who perhaps provide the HUD-VASH housing long-term solution, for example.
Okay.
Or who provide other ranges of government solutions, such as Good Neighbor Alliance, who is tied into government state-sponsored programs for housing. So we just try to be that central clearinghouse with case managers who know who to call based upon what situation it is, so that the veterans don't have to continually figure it out for themselves.
Okay.
So we crack the code once, and the veterans can all benefit from that.
Thank you.
Your numbers for intakes last year, 575, 574. How's your numbers looking the first 2 months of 2023? Are you going to exceed those numbers?
Sir, if you refer to slide 15, you'll see last year's intake numbers. And then for January, we had 32, which is off of 39 for January of last year, which we interpret as a potential, it's just a data point, but maybe we took a lot of the pressure off last year, and we'll see a lower rate this year. We've got our eye on it, and we remain hopeful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I had the privilege to work with y'all at a lot of events. Y'all been to a lot of my events, Veterans Day in the park and all that stuff. And I know what you do and what you need, but for the thousands watching on YouTube right now, what's the one thing you would ask a community member to help y'all with? One shot, one kill, one thing.
Go to 22toend22.com and buy a cup of coffee a week for a veteran.
There you go.
Please. That's what ultimately we want, is 500 guardians, 500 people buying a cup of coffee a week, because we don't want to be the Coca-Cola Warrior Healing Center. We don't want to be the government Warrior Healing Center. We want our veterans to be confident that this is community-owned and no one's trying to get their information, no one's trying to take their guns, no one's trying to, get into what medications they take, that it's just their neighbors trying to help them as neighbors. And that is what works best with our model. That's what works best with our veterans, what we hear from them. They love being helped by the community, and guess what they do? They turn right around once they're better and give back. And that makes us a stronger community. We've seen it.
Thank you so much. And a guardian, for those that don't know, is just someone who supports the Warrior Healing Center, et cetera. So 22 to fund22.com.
Excellent. Been to your place facility many times. Love the bagels. Those still going? Yes, sir. Bagels
Yes,
in the
sir.
morning. And if you those that doesn't know, to the thousands on YouTube, how did this actually get started? Is it out of the Tim Kirk, Kathy Goodman's pocket?
That's a long story, sir, but in essence, yes. What we initially wanted to do was create an indoor dog training facility after I went through the Soldier's Best Friend service dog training program and learned that Sierra Vista was the only city out of 5 in Arizona that didn't have an indoor training facility. And I saw firsthand as several veterans quit the program because they were trying to train their dog in the Veterans Park, and there were other dogs and rabbits and squirrels and kids and stuff. And I said, if I do one thing, it's going to make an indoor training facility. So we did that in our building. But we had tons of extra office space. It's a 16,000 square foot office building. And so we started building out from there as we learned about the problems veterans were having. And it was Providence who made it happen, nothing to do with us. We just kind of went along for the ride.
Any other questions?
Great story.
I had a comment. from-
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. I think Sierra Vista is very fortunate to have you here, share, very passionate and having the experience and sharing with others and putting this together with where somebody can go and they can, whatever need they have, that can be met. So thank you so much for doing that and for sharing with us. And I really love that you brought the information that you're tracking. I think that's great to be able to kind of see what trends are going on. And I just hope everybody out there definitely checks you out. And if you're not really sure if you can fund or not, go to 22 to N22 and support, because you're doing a really great thing in the community. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
I also want to thank you for everything you do. I personally know of a couple of veterans you've helped, and whoever thought to get them enrolled with the company that's helping them fully get all their benefits or even get some whatever they're entitled to, that's such a life-changing what you're doing to relieve them of that financial burden that sometimes keeps them in that cycle. It's just a big deal. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I just also want to just, as everyone has too, was just thank you for that. Well, I have 3 veterans in my family, so I know how valuable it is to have this information in your help. Thank you.
Feels like everyone is touched by this. Has an angel.
Well, everyone up here is either a veteran or married to a veteran, so we all, I think that's why we all appreciate it at a deeper level.
Well, that's honestly been one of the things that we've learned, biggest lesson over the last 5 years is there are so many veterans out here, and some are great. They've got all their ducks in the same pond and they're doing just fine. But there's a lot that have a lot of different struggles. And I was a civilian. I am a civilian, and I didn't understand any of this really until I met Tim. And going through what we're going through down here and working with the veterans that we're working with, it's really been kind of a punch in the gut for some of their experiences. And so I'm passionate about how do we make the world know? How do we let people understand some of these struggles are real and they're intense, and we need to work together to fix that. That's the least that we can do to pay back, for these folks that have put everything on the line for our freedom. So
Yes.
And no one has their ducks in a row. Because if you look under the surface, they're kicking and going crazy, just like everybody else. So,
Well, that's it too, sir. Maricopa County is more than happy to keep all those resources up there to help their ducks stay in a row. And until we scream about it and highlight the facts and highlight the numbers, nothing will change.
Yes, sir.
And that's, as Kathy referred to, I believe what they don't like about us is that we're referring to the numbers such as the rate of suicide being greater here. The CDC shows that rural communities suffer far more suicide threat than the cities. And it's because of fewer resources, fewer care facilities, and a further distance to go to get help. And so people suffer. And that's why we have to highlight this and educate people, because the need is so great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kathy.
Tim. Thank you,
Appreciate it. And keep up the hard work. Yes. And we'll go to our next mid-year financial update, Mr. Felix. Nice suspenders.
Always looking sharp. It's a finance thing. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to give some good news here with some cautionary. At the mid-year financial review, our revenues are over expenditures. We're looking good. We're looking good to finish the fiscal year as we did this last year without using any general fund reserves. I've given you the general fund overview and a department by division. Sometimes numbers get skewed. For instance, we received all $3.1 million of our annual federal CARES Act in July. So when it's expected over a year, our budget is simply the annual budget divided by 2. It does not take into account. So we look well over budget in that, but we're not getting any more, unfortunately. Likewise, when you look at the expenditure side, you've got certain programs like parks where we plant grass and they take care of the fields in spring. So they'll look ahead of budget right now, but all those things will be coming in here, and most of their expenditures will occur in the spring as they get the fields ready for all the summer programs and summer events. Likewise, capital is well under budget. Most vehicles we expect in. 2 of the big items. The fire chief's not happy, but it is, of course, the ambulances. Those will not probably come in until next year. But we did manage to get some that at least actually have a production date, unlike the other brand that couldn't even give us a production date for the chassis. So those will show as they're under budget because we do not put the encumbrances in there. The one you'll notice that sticks out kind of like a sore thumb in the department division spreadsheet is the animal control facility. But the animal control full expansion was budgeted in there at $2 million, and of course, we've not started that. We've had some surprises with that. The grant that we were expecting, the donation we were expecting to get from that was not ended up to be given to us in the manner that we were told it was going to be. Instead of getting the $1 million up front, they invested the money in the stock market, and they're going to give us a perpetual income. Last month, we got $8,000 of that million. So that rate will take us 175 years to get the million that we were expecting. So that's just a fact of how some of this stuff goes. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have in regards to anything in the report or where else we might be looking at or any concerns we may have coming up.
So, yes, sir.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. I have anything. Please, sir. City manager? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. Of course, this report is very favorable. It looks like we'll be generating, some fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. Maybe not quite as high as last fiscal year, but I think very positive. Of course, that will help us going into next year's budget. There are a few items going on at the legislature that may have very detrimental impact to our budget. That includes the residential rental tax that has made it through both houses of the legislature and is on the governor's desk. Mayor McCaw sent a letter there in opposition in hopes of getting a governor's veto on that bill. That alone would cost us estimated $531,000 in general fund revenues going into next fiscal year, and equates to a slight increase in general fund sales tax that would make up the difference. Of far more concern is the potential loss of the sales tax on food, which really hits rural communities a lot harder than those in the valley because our tax base is not as broad as larger cities in the valley in terms of taxable items. That appears, since the other one went through, it appears that this one will go through as well, and might be a little more difficult to sell the governor on a veto of that bill. If that occurs, we'll lose just over $3 million in general fund revenue, which is a very significant number to us. So if both of those were signed into law or allowed to stand by the governor, we would lose some just over $3.5 million in annual revenue from those two sources, and that would equate to general fund sales tax increase from our current 1.95% to 2.5% to make up the difference for that. Of course, we will be preparing a budget, and we generally don't do that in anticipation of tax increases. So we'll have to see how that translates into service area cuts if they do go through. And of course, we'll be working on that, and we'll let you know. On top of that, you've got the jail district sales tax proposal moving forward out of the county, with that coming up also in May. So a lot of these things are converging, at one time for us. So we will keep track of all those things. Of course, nobody likes tax increases, and we'll certainly do what we can. But right now, we're just trying to fight those in the legislature. And Mayor, we thank you for your assistance in helping us with that.
Any comments from council?
Yeah, actually, the questions I had, you answered in your presentation, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Felix. Appreciate it. And we'll go to city manager for the council executive summary.
Okay, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. You have the executive report in front of you. Of course, I just covered some of those talking about the budget. I mentioned what's going on in CCOM. Our biggest operational issue is transit right now, and finding qualified drivers. We had another retirement to come in, and that will take effect on Friday, so there will be an impact on our routes that we already have planned, moving down to 3 routes on Monday. We are changing the times because there have been at least one person that's been pretty adamant about the service and needing it to get to work. So hopefully we're going to accommodate people that may have those types of start times in this change. But until we get the drivers in the pipeline hired and trained properly, we won't be back to regular service probably for a few months yet. And that's all I have. And obviously, staff is here to answer any questions you may have with regards to other aspects of the report.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from council? Yes, ma'am.
I'm worried about transit with going to a free fare and changing hours and changing routes. Are we gonna have a basis to compare what we're going to, what the change is to where we're at? If everything keeps changing, we don't have the people.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's obviously tough when you have to make multiple changes at one time, and unfortunately, we're in a position right now where we can't really avoid that.
Roger.
But I do continue to believe that now is a good time to go fare-free on the transit system. Frankly, there's a lot of people out there who really need that right now, so I do think it's a good time to make that change, and hopefully our staffing situation improves within 6 months, which is the length of the pilot program, and we'll be able to restore some of the things we've lost, although we're not going to bring it back too soon for exactly the reasons Chuck noted. We need some stability before we can do that. But hopefully if we're able to restore some staffing stability, then we'll be able to get a gauge of how ridership works with both the free fares and the revised routes.
Okay, and I mean, it's a trickle-down effect. I hate using that term. The nonprofits like GNA and those that give bus passes, they're saving money using it elsewhere also. So I'm just excited to see, or interested to see where it's going to be at in 6 months when we look at it and see what's going on. So thank you. That was all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the executive report. It always has a lot of really great information, the breakdown, all the different departments and everything. So it's always really encouraging to go through that. I especially liked seeing the Better Bucks with the Better Work program and how they had a really good initial work day and how they're estimated to take 3 hours and they did it in 1 hour and they were excited to be there and to do more. So that was really encouraging. I look forward to hearing more about how that progresses. So that was really good to see.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, just a point of order. We were presented with the Fare Free program during basically a work session. And there was no resolution from council that permitted such an act. And I feel that, that horse has left the barn already. However, I think in order to make it a legitimate resolution and a legitimate act by the council, that we have to have a resolution permitting that and stating how long it's going to go on, if it's going to be a 6-month trial, if there's going to be a sunset clause on the trial. I just feel that we just permitted the city to make a decision on its own to go fare-free without advice of council. So that's my speech for right now.
Councilman Johnson, I totally agree. How shall we proceed?
Mayor McCaw, members of the council, it is an operational matter, so I'm not sure if it's required, but obviously if the council wants to vote on it, we can certainly put it on an agenda.
I also made a note that after the trial, I'd feel more comfortable if we voted on it, if we were going to extend it.
Well,
That's fine.
Well, I looked at it not as an you can change routes and do all that kind of stuff, but when you are affecting the fare box, that's taxpayer money. And I believe that this body up here has a responsibility to either approving the plan or disapproving the plan or making it so we have transparency in city government.
Excellent point.
I agree. It's just like the trash. Raising the low on the trash prices is the same process.
It's not a problem to put it on the agenda.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
I had some comments.
Yes, ma'am.
The ice rink was mentioned. I wonder, do you have final numbers on how much revenue was brought in? I know it was paid for by a grant.
No, I'm very excited about this question. So thank you for that. It was just under $76,000. So just under 7,600 people participated
And
on the ice.
That's in 30 days?
Yes.
Ooh, I knew it was popular, but oh my gosh.
So it's very good.
That's awesome.
And the Arizona Office of Tourism grant did help to pay for that. We had a match of $63,000. They paid $63,000. That also included the Bluetooth sound system out there, the decorations for the Christmas tree, the topper for the Christmas tree, and the ice rink and the upgrades to the electricity. Those were rented.
You guys did a great job. Thank you. And I'm trying to find it really quick. You covered the Better Bucks, he covered the buses. So, and just because you mentioned CCOM again, and I just noticed my client, Mike, thank you for all your work at CCOM. You got us through some really difficult times. So I really appreciate your service over there. Okay, I also have the numbers. Sharon, I want to thank you for helping out with the State Transportation Board coming in. You were showing up the night before. All of you showed up the night before, and we're helping out. I wanted to say thank you. And thank you for putting in I'm assuming it was Sharon, the 90 update, because we get asked about it all the time. I think that might have been it. I'm always grateful for the report. There's a lot of good information in here. And it always catches me off guard to see words like snake fire. Why is that a thing? But what is that actually?
Snake fire is when our personnel go out and get snakes.
Why the
And
word fire?
It's just designated. There's a fire column and there's an EMS column.
Oh.
It's just under fire.
It sounds like a movie,
It could be.
like a sci-fi,
Snakes on the plane.
or like that. Sounds like a great movie. All right, thank you. I just never asked that.
Thank you, sir, for your report. We'll move to report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Council.
We have Sierra Vista Metropolitan Planning Organization meets tomorrow at 2:30. Okay.
Any other?
We have our upcoming youth commission meeting on Tuesday. We'll be part of the youth arts festival at Cochise College this weekend.
Yes, sir.
We finished up our coat drive and got rid of everything. So we'll have the final numbers soon to where all the numbers we got, donations and disbursements of coats and blankets and accessories.
You're happy to report there's more people coming to the youth commission meetings,
Yes.
more adults.
Yeah. Everybody wants to check it out and see what
Everybody
it's
wants to
about.
check it out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I will be meeting with the Economic Development Commission. That'll be their third meeting. I had the pleasure of meeting with Dean Gary Packer this afternoon over lunch with Tony Boone, and we hashed out a lot of things as to the vision and where the Economic Development Commission is going to go. So I'm looking forward to that meeting tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
So yesterday we had I don't know what's wrong with my voice. Yesterday we had a ribbon cutting for the economic gardening. A lot of with some of the work that the IDA is doing and bringing to the community. So I wanted to bring that out. We're going to have a meeting here soon, but it was good ribbon cutting. Tony was, Mr. Boone was there, excuse me, and Dimitri Simonton, who's one of the spearheads. So looking forward to seeing what it does and where it goes. And that was it.
Excellent.
I'm sorry about that.
And we go to item number F, future discussions, items, council requests, any? With that, that ends our work session. Victoria, I'm sorry, Victoria, city.
I got him.
Assistant manager, thank you, sir, thank you. I'm
Your
sorry.
Your next work session, we've got an item for you for meet and confer. And then your agenda items, you'll see those 3 agenda items for commissions. So
Okay, excellent.
those are coming up soon.
All right, thank you. Thank you, council.
And to whoever's took our stuff, I want my flamingo back.
Mr. Johnson is missing his cup.
No, I found his cup. We're just missing my pink flamingo that Miss Victoria
Oh, found
gave
the
me.
cup, okay.
I
All right.
have more, William.
Never mind, she got more.